Hello chess fans, this is Rick for Chess to Impress with coverage of the last round of Tata Steel 2021. And what a spectacle it was. Let me give you a quote of international master Lawrence Trent, who did the live broadcast for the Chess24 platform. He said at the end of it, "In my 30 years of playing chess, I've never ever seen anything like this." And I wholeheartedly agree with him. Let me tell you the story. The day started like this, with the standings after 12 rounds. Ines Giri was leading the Tata Steel tournament. Would it be his year? Half a point behind him were three players, Caruana, Firouzja and Van Foreest. Yesipenko still had an outside chance to win the tournament on 7 points. Carlsen was out of the running on 6.5. Groundelius and Hare Krishna were on 50%. Tari half a point behind them. Vachier-Lagrave and Duda on 5 points. 4.5 for Wojtaszek and Anton Guijarro, and Donchenko was at the bottom of the table. Round 13 saw these results. Carlsen won his third game in the tournament. He beat Vachier-Lagrave, who has a tournament to forget. He has to regroup before the resumption of the Candidates tournament. Firouzja was not able to beat Wojtaszek and stayed half a point behind Giri, because Giri drew with Anton Guijarro. Caruana was also not able to catch up with Giri. He drew against Tari. But Van Foreest won a beautiful game against Niels Groundelius and joined Giri at the top of the table. Donchenko lost against Yesipenko, and Duda and Hare Krishna played a draw, which led to these final standings. Van Foreest and Giri on 8.5. Yesipenko, Caruana and Firouzja half a point behind. Carlsen on +2, a bad tournament for him, but still a plus score for him, but he lost 15 rating points. Hare Krishna, the only player on 50%, Tari and Groundelius on -1, Duda on 5.5, 3 players on 5 points, Anton Guijarro, Wojtaszek and Vachier-Lagrave, and Donchenko finished in bottom place. But what to do? Van Foreest and Giri on 8.5, the two Dutch players. Well, they had to play a playoff to decide on the winner. 2 blitz games of 5 minutes plus a 3-second increment per move were played, and if the score would be 1-1 after that, then it would be one Armageddon game. 5 minutes for white and 4 minutes for black. Black has draw odds, which means that if the game ends in a draw, black wins the tournament. And no increment until move 60. The 2 blitz games finished in draws after many adventures, so we're going to have an Armageddon game. Van Foreest won the toss and elected the black pieces, which meant that he had 4 minutes. Giri had 5 minutes, but Giri had to win. Let's look at that very dramatic Armageddon game. Giri opened with d4. We have the World Championship candidate against his second. Van Foreest is one of the grandmasters supporting Giri in his quest to become Magnus Carlsen's next challenger. Not easy for either player to play against each other. d5, bishop f4, knight f6, and we see a London system on the board. Knight c6, knight bd2. Let's put the opening moves on the board. Played very quickly by both players. And 8-6. Grandmaster Leko and Hess in the live broadcast that I watched were surprised by this move, but did not have the time to try and understand it. Let's say it is just a move. Bishop b5 and bishop e7. We do understand this one. Black wants to play queen b6 and wants to make sure that bishop does not hang on d6. Knight e5, putting pressure on this knight, which is pinned. Queen b6 to protect it. a4 to protect the bishop. Both players castled, and a6 kicking that bishop. Giri took on c6, b takes, and d takes c5. Bishop takes back, and b4 kicking that bishop. Bishop dropped back to e7 and a5. As the grandmasters explained, white is setting up a dark squared blockade and is better here. White has to win. Queen was attacked, so queen b7, knight d3, knight d7, knight b3, and queen b5. One alternative that was looked at is f6, with the idea to push e5, get counterplay in the center. But queen b5 was Van Foreest's choice. Knight d4, hitting the queen, queen dropped back, and rook b1. The big problem for black here is this bishop on c8. That is a very sad piece. And it's not clear how that bishop can get into the game. Knight f6 and knight c5. Attacking the queen again. Black has to take. If you go to a7 with the queen, then the pawn on c6 will be hanging. So you have to take the knight. B takes c5. Attacking the queen again, this time by the rook. If you go to e7, then there is, yes indeed, bishop d6. Winning an exchange. So the queen went to d7 instead. And here f2, f3 seems a very good move to keep the knight out of e4. And Geary would have maintained a great advantage and black would have struggled to find counterplay. But in the game, rook b6 was Geary's choice. Also makes sense. But now, knight e4. A very nervous move, Grandmaster Peter Leko called this. And this is now looking very bad for black, he said. But as we'll see, this knight is going to perform miracles. Geary took on c6. Van Foreest took on c3. Attacking the queen and queen c2. We're on move 24. Both players had 2 minutes left till move 60. And remember, without an increment. And the position is a catastrophe for black, said Peter Leko. Knight b5 was played by Van Foreest, threatening to take on d4, and then the rook will be hanging. So rook b6 was played by Geary, and now knight a3, what a resource. The plan is knight c4 to make the position difficult, as International Master Trent called it. And now a crucial moment in the game. A move like queen c3 makes sense. The queen was attacked on c2, then the knight comes to c4. You can then play c6. The queen has to drop back. You can play c7, protected by the bishop. Queen d7 and knight c6. These are engine moves. White is much better here. But in the game, Geary played c5, c6 on the 26th move. And that move deserves a double question mark. After the game, Jordan van Foreest said that Geary spent 30 seconds on this move. I checked it on replay on the live broadcast, and in fact Geary spent 1 minute and 1 second on this move. 20% of the time he started with. He now had 57 seconds left for 34 moves. And Van Foreest said, suddenly the tactics work out for me. Because now Van Foreest took the queen. Geary took black's queen. And knight takes d4. Van Foreest said after the game, I was very confused. I thought I had missed something, but when I played knight takes d4, I saw on his face that he missed something, and I thought, wow, maybe I will win. He also said the position is immediately very clarified. There's nothing to do. I felt a lot better about my chances. And what is the point of knight takes d4? Can you not win a piece with d takes c8 queen? Black has to recapture, and then white will take the knight. But no, in this position there would be knight e2 check, saving the knight. King h1 and then rook h2 c8. And look at the path that this knight has taken. From d7 to f6 to e4 to c3, b5, a3, c2, d4, e2, and he can finish his journey by taking the bishop on g3 with check. And then black has a better endgame with an extra pawn. That would be a double rook endgame, and black only needed a draw. Let's go back to the game. Knight takes d4, so d takes c8 queen does not win for white. Geary saw it now, he took the knight straight away, and then also after bishop takes d7 we have a position, a very simplified position with an extra pawn for black who only needs a draw. We're on move 28, still a long way to go to the time control. The game goes on. Rook c1, bishop b5, bishop d6. It all looks very good now for Van Foreest. He saves his rook. Bishop c5, rook c7, rook e1, rook ac8 doubling on the c file. f4, h5, king f2. Let's make some more moves. And here on move 36 we have g4. At this moment Geary had only 36 seconds left. Van Foreest 55 seconds. This tournament lasts 16 days and it will be decided in the last minute and a half, where both players have to make 24 more moves each. Let's continue. Van Foreest took on g4, 8 stakes, and rook c6, trying to swap a pair of rooks. Geary tries to avoid that, but he cannot. A move repetition will not help him. He has to win. And finally, a pair of rooks is swapped. Rook e5, bishop d7, rook g5 check, king h7, and bishop f8. It looks suddenly a bit dangerous, but not really, because he can just play g6. And the white bishop can get to f6, but the white rook is trapped on g5 and cannot go to the h-file to give the classic checkmate on h8. Black is fine. Geary has to reroute the rook. It was not going anywhere on g5, it was just trapped there. f6, rook back to e3, king g8, the bishop has to go back. Rook b7, bishop b6 and bishop b5. This is move 48. Geary had 13 seconds left and Van Foreest 37. 12 more moves to make. And with his last move, black has blundered a pawn. But the position is still even and black only needs a draw. But he dropped the e6 pawn. And he was clearly shocked. You saw it in his face on the live broadcast. King f7, rook e1, rook e7. If the rooks get swapped, we have an opposite colored bishop ending, which is a simple draw. Geary avoids swapping the rooks. Rook e4, attacking some pawns. King f3, bishop e2 check. King g3, another check. King f2 and rook back to e4. Rook c7 check, king dropped back, and g5. And now we're on move 56. Only a few more moves to make. And both players were moving instantly. Jordan van Foreest makes a big blunder here. He takes on f4 with check, but leaves the bishop en prise. Incredible. Geary saw it, took on e2 straight away, and only has a few more moves to make to move 60. And now he is winning again. He just picked up a full piece on e2. He's just a piece up. F takes g5 and rook a7. And here both the live broadcast as well as the Chess24 broadcast reported that white lost on time here in a winning position. But I played the footage over and over about a dozen times and I don't think that is what happened. At this moment Geary wanted to play rook a7, but in these terrible nervous moments he knocked over several pieces and had to put these back on the board before pressing the clock, which he did. I think he managed to do this on time, but the live board stopped recording the moves as about 4 or 5 pieces were dropped off their squares by Geary and then replaced. The players played on, and from their body language it was clear to me that white had not overstepped the time yet. Van Foreest played g4 as soon as Geary had put all the pieces that he knocked over back on their squares. Rook takes a6, white is winning, an extra piece up, and he only has to make one more move to reach the time control and get that 3-second increment on each move. g3, that pawn is very dangerous, but it can be stopped with, for example, rook a8 check, king f7, rook c8, g2 and rook c1, stopping the pawn. White is winning. Another option after g3 is to play bishop c7. Very nice move, attacking the rook, rook g4 and then king f1, and again the g-pawn is stopped. But after g3, Geary made the final mistake of this Armageddon game. He played rook a7, double question mark. It is with this move that Geary loses the Tata Steel tournament, and it is move 60. The last move he had to make before he got an increment of 3 seconds per move. g2 was played, and that pawn is now unstoppable. Black will get a new queen, and Van Foreest had the black queen in his hand already. Geary played rook a8 check, king d7, rook d8 check, king e7, and Geary resigned as he cannot stop the g-pawn queening. So in my view, even though I did not see the clock, but I looked at the body language of the players, Geary did not lose on time, but on position. And to repeat the very nice quote from International Master Lawrence Trent, I've never seen anything like this in my 30 years of playing chess. Jordan van Foreest said after the game, "I like this place, I like the atmosphere, I thought I could play well here, but I did not think I could play this well. Now I'm going to take some rest." And that is very well deserved. One must feel for Anish Geary, who played great all through the tournament. He could have won it yesterday by beating Alireza Firouzja with that endgame of 4 pawns against the knight, but he was pipped at the post by his countryman in this very dramatic Armageddon game. And someone else one must feel for is Giri's wife, International Master Sopiko Guramishvili. She was doing live commentary for the tournament broadcast, and of course it was very difficult for her to watch her husband play, watch him suffer and give commentary at the same time. One must commend her, she stayed very professional. Of course inside she had all sorts of emotions, but she kept it together and did a great broadcast. Some screenshots from the dramatic last moments. This is a screenshot where Giri has just knocked over those pieces and he has to put them back on their squares before pushing the clock. He used even both hands to put them back on their squares, and you see that Van Foreest is already making g5, g4, that pawn move. And this is the moment that Giri saw that he cannot stop the g-pawn and he resigned, looking away in disgust. So Jordan Van Foreest is the winner of the 2021 Tata Steel chess tournament. He was number 11 in rating of the 14 participants and he was a 1 to 1000 outsider. A few facts that I picked up from the live broadcast. 21 years of age, rating of 2671, but he gained 30 rating points in this event. So apart from winning this tournament, he's also now broken the 2700 barrier, which is a magic barrier for the top grandmasters. World number 67, well, he must be a lot higher now, and as said, seeded 11 before the tournament. He was the 2013 European Under 14 champion. He became an international master at 15 years old, the youngest Dutch grandmaster ever in 2015, 2016 Dutch champion, and 2019 Dutch championship runner-up. Last year in the Tata Steel tournament he had a great result, finishing in 4th place, and this year it's even better. He's the winner, and he's the first Dutch winner since Jan Timman in 1985, which is 36 years ago. I hope you enjoyed my coverage of the 2021 Tata Steel tournament, and that if you did, that you'll give this video the thumbs up, that you'll subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, and that you'll leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.